Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to some gaming news that is definitely not World of Warships related, but it is wargaming related, and I felt like because it's connected in terms of the developer publisher of Wargaming Group, um, we should talk about it. Or I wanted to talk about it on the channel and also get your guys' thoughts because it kind of revolves around a bigger topic in terms of the future of World of Warships and the future of World of Tanks. So with that being said, let's dive into it. So for those of you who play World of Warships, World of Tanks, Wargaming recently, I think last year and then into this year, they started on some new, two new ambitious projects, two new games. One is Project CW, if that's how you phrase that one. It's another tank game. It's be a spin-off of World of Tanks and is something a little bit different, which I'll talk about. And the others was this Steel Hunters game, where it was basically mechanized units, PvP, PvE type content in the game. That would be happening here with Steel Hunters. So this game came out very recently, and already Wargaming is pulling the plug on it very fast because citing a lack of sustainability. And I'll get into that, and we'll talk about player numbers and things like that. So hang in there if you do follow me for the Warships content and World Tanks. Like, I want to talk about more of the future of what does this mean? Because when you're playing a game that is derivative of a publisher, of a developer, it's very important to pay attention, in my opinion, my view. What is the developer doing? And does that give you any clues and signs to how maybe their actions in the present might impact their actions in relations to maybe a game of that same developer, of that same publisher they're also playing? So, Steel Hunters, the sun is setting. A farewell to Steel Hunters, final updates, full unlocks, and our thanks to the community. Hello Hunters, today we share the difficult news. We've made a decision to sunset Steel Hunters. You've given us so much passion and support, but unfortunately we've come to the conclusion that continuing to develop it is not sustainable. We know this isn't the news anyone wanted to hear, and we genuinely share in your disappointment. So what happens now? So a focus of making the final month special together. Servers will stay live for 90 days. So maybe, when is this? Is there a date on this? So like what, 85 days roughly? As I read this, probably closer to 80 days when this video goes published. Live for 90 more days. We want you to enjoy Steel Hunters fully until the very end. So basically July, August, September, October 8th. And so they're going to keep it 3 months from today, July 8th. I expect them to shut down around October 8th. Custom games in the coming weeks will roll out custom game support so you can play with your friends, set up community matches, and create some final memories together. All hunters fully unlocked. As a thank you for your dedication, we're unlocking every hunter for all players with a new game mode, including hunters nobody has seen yet. Try them out, explore, and have fun. A farewell tournament. We're also planning a goodbye tournament to celebrate your love for competition and the amazing community you've built. More details soon on their Discord. We're immensely grateful for your time, feedback, memes, and the countless memorable battles we've shared. From the very first days of Alpha, you've shaped Steel Hunters with your energy, creativity, I think they're missing some apostrophes or commas, and dedication, and we're honored to have had you on this journey. We couldn't have wished for a better community, and we'll miss you all dearly. Thank you, Hunters, for everything. It's kind of interesting. I feel like it's a lot of nice words all wrapped up. They definitely don't, what do I want to say, gaslight or like really accuse the players. But the only other thing they're giving is just they're citing the inability to that development is not sustainable long-term in the game. Basically, what they don't say in this is that there's a lack of player numbers, right? So if we come in here into Steam and we look at the database here of player numbers, the all-time peak was 3 months ago. The last 24-hour peak, this is on Friday, 75 players right now, 57. So even when we go to the 3-month timeline, we can see here about 1589. So I don't know, it looks like it's further back. Yeah, back here when we had the all-time peak effectively here in the game. And, you know, just last week, they've only been around 155 players, but more average of closer to about 110 or something like that. So definitely a lack of players interested. I think the gaming market is effectively really saturated with a lot of games. There's a lot of options for people, of course, but not enough interest to be generated here as Steel Hunters and keeping it going. I do like these newer AI overviews and giving some better information. So you have these different articles. We're going to read the IGN article together. But the AI overview basically says Steel Hunters on Steam is experiencing a rapid decline in player numbers, ultimately leading to the game's shutdown. Cited the lack of sustainability for the reason of the shutdown. The game will remain online for another 90 days. The breakdown of the player count situation. So there's initial peak, and there's a very rapid decline. I mean, when you look at this, max, I mean, it falls like, here's 14th of April, right? 2nd of April, drops back up and down. And then just, yeah, I mean, it's just, they weren't able to reverse this trend. It's just continuing to go down and down and down and down. Like now you're seeing more less than 100. It was even before, or that was as of the 8th of July, just even less, that the game has just no future. So that's really interesting. Let's look at the IGN article, and then I want to talk more about my big braining and talking with some others on my FlimsyLunchTray Discord server with my admin who shared this, and then some others in the WoWs community. We were talking about what about World of Warships? What does this mean? What is kind of some of the motives wargaming might be doing here? So Steel Hunters, the mecha battle game from the people behind World of Tanks, is the latest live service Casualty. Continuing development is not sustainable. The live service bloodbath continues. This time the Casualty is Steel Hunters, the mech shooter game from the people behind World of Tanks. World of Tanks is much popular than World of Warships, so it's not surprising that they don't talk about or reference World of Warships here. Steel Hunters launched on April 2nd, early access form on Steam. Some had hoped for Titanfall vibes from this free-to-play PvPvE shooter, but it fell completely flat, and just 3 months later, developer Wargaming has announced plans to sunset the game. In the post, which I just read from you, the game will be on live for another 3 months before going permanently dark around October 8th. So what went wrong? Amid the difficulties so many live service games have endured in recent times, Steel Hunters failed to capture an audience. It launched on Steam with a peak of 4,479 concurrent players and a mixed user review rating, and it was downhill from there. At the time of this article's publication, the 24-hour peak was 97 with just 52 concurrent players. That's devastating for any free-to-play game. I actually quite like this top user review on Steam. It feels like they kind of captured what I was hearing even before this article and Wargaming announced this news. This player had over 300 hours on Steel Hunters, including its various pre-launch forms, and lamented the potential of the game and praised its mech design and maps. However, they criticized Wargaming's lack of a roadmap, slow pace of updates, and various bugs. Quote, early access should have never happened. They said, we should have never left beta. Time and time again, the players have been vocal about changes or fixes that were needed and have come to the table with very helpful solutions, only to be met with, we are moving forward, only to then react with, why did it go south? Live service video games are enduring a tough time right now with a number of titles falling by the wayside or finding themselves canceled before launch. Sony's Concord is perhaps the highest profile example of that, a PlayStation disaster that cost the gaming business hundreds of $millions. But only last week, Microsoft canceled an unannounced MMORPG from the developer of The Elder Scrolls Online, resulting in hundreds of layoffs. So really interesting to see what's happening here effectively. I was even going into the comments to see what people were saying here regarding the game. Nice try. You had the might to create a new and better Titanfall, but you failed. Hope you will come back and do better next time. Now, some other things that shouldn't be read here. I'm just trying to see some more helpful comments here. Apparently not very helpful comments here with what's being said. So, yeah. So, what was the conversation I had with some of the people in my Discord server? We're kind of noting the fail. I mean, that's a pretty hard fail, honestly, with how this has gone. You know, one of my reactions was, okay, now kind of coming into a player of one of Wargaming Group's products, being specifically World of Warships. This is kind of the transition point in the video now, talking more about that field. But as we were talking in my Discord server, you know, one of the things I said was, well, not sure how to feel about this. I feel like them going for Steel Hunters in the other tank game, the Project CW, was them trying to plant new fields of monetization since WoWs is slowly declining, and they see the writing on the wall. And then Forgotten Void, he has his YouTube channel also in my NA clan. More likely they are killing World of Warships and World of Tanks and are looking for their new cash cow. And we had some discussion around this. I see the writing on the wall for World of Warships. I think World of Tanks probably still has a brighter future, unless Wargaming has a moment where they say, hold my beer. But I would say, you know, if you were putting, well, I don't know how to phrase this better. If you were forcing me to give my perception of kind of reading the events of Steel Hunters, Project CW, and that, when you look at how it's declining in World of Warships, I don't know if it's declining in World of Tanks, from what I think it is in terms of player count, but maybe, I mean, nothing like, you know, this is like, wow, like this is brutal here, right? But I think World of Warships has, at minimum, several years, like let's say 3 years, if not maybe 4 or 5, where Wargaming can still monetize the game quite freely until they just get to a point where maybe they decide that World of Warships isn't sustainable long term, that they can't invest in it all, right? Mainly because, you know, I'm not going to get into this. I have a different video on it. I'll even put it at the end here. A lot of the reason why you've had a lot of players leave World of Warships is their poor judgment in terms of the development of the game in a way that doesn't service livelihood. Whether we're talking about mechanics around submarines, aircraft carriers, more overmatch in the game. I referenced this in the Blue Crew video I did on Friday, where, you know, Wargaming within the last year or two with World of Warships is they're kind of doing the whole Jurassic Park thing, where they're incorporating the DNA of dinosaurs that together to make this new species. And I say that in a way where you get battleships with cruiser guns, you get cruisers with heavier and heavier battleship guns, you get destroyers with cruiser guns. I mean, now we have the hull with 203mm guns on it, American Tier 10 destroyer. You get submarines with destroyer guns, and maybe soon they introduce a submarine that also has an aircraft. You get CVs that are built for secondaries. You get CVs that now control manual secondary battery control. You get destroyers, cruisers, and battleships with attack aircraft being hybrid battleships, hybrid cruisers, hybrid destroyers. So they're just really Jurassic Parking the hell out of it before the park closes. All in an effort to, you know, Wargaming is copy pasting a lot effectively in the game with, you know, like for example, I just saw you had the I-56 submarine, and then they introduced the I-56-44 submarine, and then now there's I don't know the name of this new event in the game. It's BA something, and it's a copy paste of a copy paste. It's I-56-44 and another version, another different name, right? So they're just really copy pasting a lot in the game. And then because of reasons, they're just Jurassic Parking, mixing all these type of ship DNAs into various different classes that really just feels like they're running out of ideas and they're just trying to monetize what's left of the game before they eventually view it as no longer able to sustain the game. So that being said, I had viewed Steel Hunters and Project CW as a way for wargaming to begin to look towards greener pastures. I mean, of course, there tends to be a shelf life on most video games to an extent, where they just don't last forever, right? And the developer, the publisher, they need to start doing new games and stuff like that. But it's like kind of crazy. Like, you can have these games where it's like, you know, honestly, if you listened to your community, and you didn't develop it in a way that is pushing players away from the game, or you're going to this point where for like, let's say, I don't know how it is for EU, but on NA with World of Warships, a lot of players have also cited the greedy over monetization of the game as the driving factors in pushing people away, because it's constantly in their face. Like, you know, you log into the game and it's like, hey, go to the armory for our new collaboration with this other thing, or you get these pop-up windows, right? It really becomes spammy with the monetization. So ideally, of course, a developer or publisher should be looking to create, design, do new games and stuff like that. But like, I would say with, you know, World of Warships, there's this element where you have people who are really interested in naval warfare history, and wargaming has, for the most part, owned the block in that arena. There's not really another game besides War Thunder that probably comes close to World of Warships in that capacity. So you could really develop that in a way that it really lasts a long time. Like, most players of this game are, I don't know, they have the parameters on it, but I think they're around 40-year-olds. I myself am a 32-year-old. You get some new young blood in the game as well, and there's also a lot of retirees that also do play World of Warships. But you continue to push people away, not only because of the development and monetization, but also, to some extent, wargaming is kind of a scummy company. Whether we're talking about the poor treatment of players, the poor treatment of community contributors, the poor treatment of content creators that aren't community contributors, and even the poor treatment of some of its own staff and employees with various stories and things like that going around. And I'm not getting into that in this video. So it's just like, what is wargaming trying to do here? Like, some players can feel, and I agree to the extent that it's kind of like they're just trying to look for new fields to monetize because the writing is on the wall, perhaps for World of Warships in the next 5 years, perhaps. Will it become a game that ends up being like Armored Warfare? You know, where you have only a very small core group of people playing Armored Warfare, they're still servicing the game, but there's no development in Armored Warfare anymore effectively. It's just enough to pay the bills and pay the people who run the company now for Armored Warfare. Is that what World of Warships is going to turn into? But wargaming, of course, has the economic resources to start investing in other places, like perhaps Project CW, or, you know, what was Steel Hunters that has now failed amazingly really fast, right? You know, it's interesting to think about this player who talks about, you know, how often is it that you get a developer that they want to leave beta so fast and just get the game out there, and then like, oh crap, why did the game go south? Why didn't it work out? You know, and you have people there who are giving you feedback. I mean, of course, this is this person's perspective. Maybe their opinion is wrong or something, but to me, it sounds very wargaming. I'm not gonna lie. You know, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, talks like a duck, swims like a duck, it's a duck. It's wargaming. Wargaming be wargaming. So I think that's effectively where we're at. So, you know, bummer, at least. I don't want to sound unsympathetic. Sympathetic to those probably among the developers who've put a lot of time into this game, who really wanted it to be a success, only for it to kind of fall on its face. because it was interesting to me between Project CW and Steel Hunters. The reason why this is perhaps even relevant for us beyond it involving the developer, publisher Wargaming Group, is also that these games were advertised to us as World of Warships players and World of Tank players, and the 5 people still playing World of Warplanes. But they were putting this out in front of us, like, come. They're trying to take from current customers to go into a new games. Like, hey, we do so well at. I'm only gonna pick on with World of Warships here. We as a publisher developer do so well with World of Warships. Won't you come play Steel Hunters? And honestly, I think a lot of I could be wrong on this. I could be off the mark. I had a friend who said, hey, like, we're looking for some new games to play. And he's like, what about the Steel Hunters? And I was like, oh, actually, that's developed by Wargaming. And because of that, I'm not interested to play it. That was my view. That was my take. Now look where we're at, a couple of months later. And I don't wish, and I've said this before, I don't wish bad for Wargaming. I want them to be healthy, successful, but it's kind of hard when Wargaming be Wargaming, with a lot of the poor decisions they've made over the years and lack of development, and particularly how they've treated people. That makes it hard for me to have sympathy in a certain aspect, right? But I know there are definitely people who are very passionate people, even in Wargaming, that want World of Warships to be better than it is. But hey, at the end of the day, who makes the decisions when maybe you're being pressured that the game made X amount in October 2024, but in October 2025, we expect it to make 5 to 10% more. And you as a developer, your job kind of revolves around those expectations. So what are you going to do? Are you going to put more copy-paste ships into the game? Are you going to put more collaborations? Or various ways to monetize the game in making it deeper and deeper and deeper, where we now are in World of Warships, we have an untold, we have like 30, 40 different currencies effectively in the game, through various events throughout the year as well. So I think it's just telling. I think it's important. I'm going to keep my eye open with what Wargaming is doing outside of World of Warships and outside of World of Tanks. I don't cover World of Tanks, but to see what they were doing here with Steel Hunters, to see what they were doing here with the joining the Project CW, this new tank game, it's just really interesting to try to keep these things in mind, to see how is this developer, publisher moving into new territory, for better or worse. So that being said, it's going to wrap the video up for today. Give me your thoughts in the comments below. I'd be interested to have a good conversation around, those of you who are customers of Wargaming, or maybe you're even not customers of Wargaming, you are a player of Steel Hunters or a player of Project CW. Kind of interested just us to get together, talk in the comments, have a conversation around our thoughts on things, as it were, maybe some of the points I made here in the video, whether you agree or disagree. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you subscribe, thanks so much. I would appreciate it. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Until next time, take care.